Welcome to my journey through the Bible. This will be applications that we can apply to our life and a little more in depth about the chapter. We are in Genesis 49, 1 through 33, and we see that Jacob called all of his sons before him so that he could bless them before he passed away. Now, the way that these men lived their lives in their younger years played a very important impact on how their future would be and the prophecy that Jacob gave them for each one of their lives. Now, oftentimes what we do today is going to affect what happens tomorrow. If today you decide to sleep with someone, in the morning you're going to feel guilt and shame. If you are married, it will affect your spouse and your children. If you decide today that you're not going to work, you're probably not going to have money for your bills and the things that you need the next day. If you're working hard today, then you're going to have money put back to pay for the things that you need and to provide. Today, if you go to a child's ball game, they're going to remember that tomorrow. So we have to choose what actions we're going to do and how they will affect others around us, not only today, but tomorrow and for days down the road. Now, the oldest son was supposed to get a double helping of the inheritance, but Reuben had lost his because he was unstable and trustworthy, and especially in his younger years. And how could his father give such a dishonorable son a double blessing? Now we see that Judah had sold Joseph into slavery, but over the years he made a drastic change in his character, and he even was willing to take the place of his younger brother in order to make sure that he was safe. And the Messiah will come from his bloodline. Now, Dan was a very strong leader, but only if he trusted in God. If he relied on his own abilities, then he would find some hardship and he wouldn't always accomplish everything that he had desired. Oftentimes we find that people who are strong, attractive, and have talent, they look to their own self for their strength and for their achievements. They forget about God. They forget that God was the one that blessed them with all of that. And at any time, God could take it away. And Joseph was a very fruitful and heroic descendant. God protected and provided for Joseph. Now, when we struggle or we leave God out of things, we forget the abilities that God has and the way He can help us. So whether we are fighting against weapons or against some spiritual battle, we have to draw close to God. We have to trust Him to rescue us and to fight for us against those spiritual battles. And we have to have teamwork between courage, faithful people, and a mighty God. Now, the entire nation of Israel would come from these 12 men. And just a little bit of history. Levi's descendants was Aaron, and he will be a great priest or minister. Moses will save the people of Israel, and Eli was a great prophet, and John the Baptist led the way for Jesus. Now, Judah's descendants was David, who was a great king, and he was a man after God's own heart. And Jesus would come from his line as well. Dan's descendants was Samson, a man of great strength, but he forgot where his strength came from, and he believed in himself instead of in God. And he allowed a woman to get the best of him and deceive him, and he would have his eyes put out. Now, Neptan's descendants was Elijah, who was a great prophet with an amazing story. And Gad, he had Jehoshaphat, who would host Jesus and the disciples in his own home. Joseph's descendants was Joshua, who would lead Israel into the promised land. Deborah, who was a woman that would lead the men into war, and they would, of course, win. And Gadon was a man that took 300 other men with him, as well as God, and defeated a mighty army. And Samuel was a priest, and that he would anoint Saul and David as king. Benjamin's descendants would be Saul, who would be the first king of Israel. And of course, he took his eyes off of God, so then he would be replaced by David. Esther is in his line, who had a great faith that saved all of her people. And Paul, who was Saul and persecuted Christians, but God would touch him and he would forever have his life changed, and he would be the leader of the churches. Now, the other 5 sons, they didn't really have any descendants of notable descendants. But these people had a lasting impact on Israel, and they were very important for God's plan and bringing things about. So I know I probably gave you a lot of little tidbits, and you might not recognize the names, you might not even know the stories, but these are some amazing stories that as we continue to read the Bible, we will go through them in detail and see how they had an impact on Israel and God's plan for Israel. So if you don't recognize any of these names, just wait. We'll be coming against them or be talking about them soon. So may God be with you in every way and in everything.